So real quick, I bought acceleration boost for my 2019 Model 3 all-wheel drive. So I got it for free with referral credits, and I got that about 10,000 miles ago. So what I did is I set trip A. I reset that as soon as I got the acceleration boost. And then I have my lifetime here that really hasn't moved much at all. You can see I've used 21,000 kilowatt hours or 21 megawatt hours of electricity. But the big thing here that I wanted to point out was the difference in the energy consumption once I got the acceleration boost. So what you can see here in the average energy used consumption, lifetime is 278 watt hour per mile. And then we have the acceleration boost at 283 watt hours per mile. Over 10,000 miles, that's both highway and in-town driving. Pretty much the same way I've been driving this car since the lifetime, so nothing's really changed in the way it's been driving or anything like that. And so what you can see there is, was that a 5 watt hour per mile. So just as acceleration boost, the difference that it did, it's roughly 5 miles of range difference when having acceleration boosts, at least over the last 10,000 miles, which is roughly 1.5% of my total range. So if you use this number here by the battery size, which I believe is 77 kilowatt hours, it comes out to about 275 miles of range based on that usage there of 278. The difference now with acceleration boost using 283, instead of 276 miles of range, it's 273 miles of range. So a difference of about 5 miles. Now this is per average, right? So if you're on the interstate, you're not going to get that much. But if you are on, say, city roads, you're getting a lot more range. So here's a chart of our consumption currently. So what you're seeing here is a lot of this line here. This is the last 30 miles. It's an average of 225, right? So that's much lower than the 278 watt hours per mile. This is going much slower speeds. If you look at actually the last 5 miles, I've actually been in city streets on this highway driving about 40 miles per hour, 45 miles per hour, and we're an average of 180 watt hours per mile. So, that's a big difference. So when you're in, the city streets, if you were to say, and you can see the average moves because we're going at a much smaller time scale here and, or increment scale. And you can see the green is where I'm regenning my battery as I'm hitting the brakes. And the red up here is me accelerating. This actually probably still has a little bit of the interstate on there, potentially. And so what this number will move around a lot, and it's giving you the projected range of how much range you have at the moment. So I have currently 30% of battery there. If I clicked it, it's going to use my average consumption over the lifetime of the car. I'm not really sure what the consumption is, but it's 83 miles of range based on my average. That's why they call this the guessometer. So that's why I always just use 30%. This is actually what the range would be if I was driving on this road for the rest of my trip, basically at 45 miles per hour, 40% miles per hour. I could drive 153 miles versus 80 miles of my average. Just as a good example of the difference of driving slow speeds versus the average higher speeds, because I do a lot of interstate driving, which is why my range estimate is much lower than what the rated range of the vehicle is. So I thought this was pretty neat to show. As you can see, this number changes a lot, and as this number changes, that number changes. But let's just say what this would be if this was my actual range. What would I get on a full battery pack? So looking at this, I actually did a different number calculation. I did 226, I think it was. Don't quote me on that. But it actually said if I got this range constantly, right, driving this speed, then I would get 600 miles of range with a full battery. That's twice as much as the rated range of the car typically. So, it's just an example of how the differences in range will be based on the speed you are driving. If you drive mostly in town and in city streets and you're driving at lower speeds, you will get an average life consumption of a much higher number, which will tell you that your car can get a much higher total driving range. But if you drive mostly on the interstate, then that's not going to be the case. So I hope that was just like a little helpful there. For me, I think it's good to kind of think about that stuff. People don't realize the big differences with city driving versus highway driving. That's why with gasoline cars, when they do the EPA range or their gas mileage consumption, they do a highway range and a city range, right? And then they do a combined average. So EVs, they do the same thing, but it's a lot different with EVs, just because they're not using miles per gallon. So the miles per gallon equivalent doesn't really come out really well. So the EPA estimated range calculation is done based on a 70 mile per hour average, I believe. I'm not entirely sure. If you know, leave that in the comments. But yeah, it's not the greatest, but you just need to keep in mind that depending on your driving situations, you can get a lot more range in your EV, or you may get a lot less than the stated range of the car. And then if you speed, you're going to get even less. So I hope you found this useful. If you did, leave a like and subscribe for more EV stuff. I got a lot of videos, and we will see you on the next one.